And the idea is that they push each other, so they both belong to the same agent, where the part that proposes goals is encouraged to propose harder and harder goals, right? So what happens is they both start randomly because they both have to learn, but unlike the random policy, which will never reach the ultimate goal because it needs to pass through all the sequences of steps, it can reach sometimes the randomly proposed goals by one of the agents, right? Like just get to that post, oh, I'm randomly acting once I got there. And then the policy becomes good at that, so it learns to a little bit about the environment, but then the model that proposes goals is encouraged to propose harder goals, because that's the reward function that we define for it. We tell it, we're going to give you a reward whenever the policy reaches the goal, but not too easily. And therefore it's forced to propose a bit harder goals, and then the policy starts exploring more and it's able to get that, and then the one that proposes goals needs more time and has to propose harder goals, and then they end up pushing each other without, like kids do, like just exploring with something and getting some internal reward, like enjoying that. But anyway, that was a word about my research. So getting towards the end. So I told you that there are these three components that create our mind, like things coming from genes, from cultures, and then consciousness. And they are often allies, like everything we do, all our cosmovision and everything comes from those three, but there are actually things that come from different computational processes that evolve at different timescales. And they can be enemies, right? Like I can have a sexual desire that comes from my genes, and then my culture can make that go away, or I can have a desire for sugar that the genes give me, and my consciousness can say, I want to stop eating consciousness, and ultimately eating sugar. And ultimately, we only care about consciousness, right? I am my consciousness. The only thing that experiences and actually has goals is my consciousness. And that's taking the lead, right? Like, as we have more and more technological progress and understanding, we're able to suppress genes, we're able to go against our cultures and modify that. And I want to end with this idea, which is that this is a plot on algorithmic scales, which means that every box is 10 times bigger than the box on the right? So the first box took 10 times more than the next box. And here are a bunch of important things. So throughout my talk, I've been saying how life took thousands of millions of years to evolve. Then once we had brains, it was hundreds of millions of years. Then once we had cultures, we were talking about thousands of years. And even if you look in the very right of here, once humans appeared, this steep still kept accelerating, right? We had language 40,000 years ago, and then it was still very slow, because cultural evolution is much faster than Darwinian evolution, but it's still much slower than logical thinking. So it took many generations. And then it took 30,000 to become sedentary, and then only 5,000 to have writing, and then once we had writing, only 2,000 to have like printing press, and once we had printing press, only 300 years for the Enlightenment, and once we had that, only 100 years for computers, and then maybe 30 years for internet, and then we have machine learning, and now it really feels we're not talking now about like thousands of millions of years, nor hundreds of years, we're really talking now about years. And with this, I want to convey, relating to the questions that were asked at the beginning, humans are not that special. In this story, humans are an important step, but of a much more important story that involves genes, cultures, consciousness, and what's coming ahead. To me, it seems most likely that humans have existed only for a tiny bit of that period, and we're part of a much larger and still accelerating evolution, and there's nothing, the brain, like any other object in the universe so far, is something that's understandable, manipulable, reproducible, and most likely we're gonna, once we understand those processes, so when we reach what has been called artificial general intelligence, so a machine that can do anything that a human can do, and there's no reason that you would not, because if I'm right that everything is instantiated in neurons, once we're able to understand that and replicate it in machines, acceleration is even going to be further, right? Like imagine an algorithm that can do what I can do, except it doesn't have to sleep, and it doesn't have to take 6 years of undergrad, and then 6 years of being a professor, and then, but it just happens automatically. Acceleration is things like not aging, or like not communicating through natural language, which is just a process that happens, molecules coming out from muscles that communicate, a molecule pushes another molecule that pushes, that's how sound propagates, then it comes to the ear, and then there's another muscular process. That's very slow. Like if we understand that, we can just have Wi-Fi to convey information from one, or having our brains in fridges and then they communicate. I'm just trying to convey when you were asking what's going to happen to humans. I don't know, it's very hard to predict the future, but if these trends of exponential growth, and I'm not the one making this argument, one of the first ones was Ray Kurzweil, who's now a director of Google, and in the 1970s said, this is crazy, like we're going to have really impressive things like artificial general intelligence maybe around, he said 2030, that seems a little bit close, but if this is accelerating exponentially, it could not be that much farther away that we have that, and once we have that, it will keep accelerating. And with that, thank you. I wrote a book that goes into more detail into this. It's in Amazon. I hope you read it and like it. Thank you.